Well, hello everyone. My name is Zachary O'Shea, and this is Box of Teeth. So, you want to have a haunted location in your Dungeons & Dragons game. I'm going to go over how I build one myself with an example right now. In an earlier video, I mentioned that I'm going to be running a Ravenloft game soon for my teenage child and their friends, and I am pretty excited about it. It's going to be taking place in Mordant, which is the realm of the haunted in Ravenloft. As a crux of the adventures, they're going to be sent out by a mysterious benefactor to gather up some strange flora said benefactor needs for their alchemical experiments, which again, if you know, Mordant is also probably not going to end up being a good thing in the long run, but they need a base camp to operate from. Instead of making that a haunted manor, I'm going to go with a haunted hunting lodge. I think that'd be a little more interesting and more setting to the fact that they're going to be out in the wilderness towards the Sigil Lakes. The main thing that a haunted location needs is, of course, specters, wraiths, ghosts, and the like, and they need to have their own distinct personality and look that is going to stick with the players, and their own backstories that are a mystery for those players to unravel. Think 13 Ghosts, Crimson Peak, Lady in Black, The Shining, Rose Red, rest in peace, Julian Sands, and that sort of thing. So let's start with that primary antagonist ghost that seems to be lording over everything. In this case, we have Greenbones, who is an elf who was a monster hunter. They can be male or female. The original version that's online is female, but they were portrayed by other hunters, not those that hunt monsters, but the kind of spoiled nobility that loves trophy sports and decided to hunt the most dangerous game. They did succeed, but didn't kill the elf outright. Instead, they hung them on the hedge wall around their hunting lodge, which is the horrific haunted setting that the players will be going to. This lodge is old and abandoned and rotting and falling apart, but the various thorny briars and miles of kudzu are holding it together like sinew or muscle, and it has a vast unkept hedge wall around it, which is keeping the local flora and fauna out. Thus, once the heroes expunge any sort of haunt there and tame the area, it's a nice defensible location for them to work out of in the future. Now, Greenbones themselves will be accompanied by several other ghosts and specters and nasty little undead that are much lower level, so the PCs have something to deal with and gain XP before dealing with the big bad spirit themselves, which I'll cover Greenbones really quickly for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition right now. Greenbones themselves is a challenge rating 6, so they're going to be really tough for a tier 1 party to deal with, which means they have to solve the mystery until they can deal with Greenbones. They are chaotic neutral instead of chaotic evil, because they want to hunt evil and take vengeance on those that deserve it. It's possible the heroes might be able to influence them to be partially on their side depending on what they do. They do have the usual sort of damage resistance, damage immunities, and condition immunities that a ghost would have, along with the typical ethereal sight, imperial movement, and etherealness. On top of this, they do have magic weapons, so their attacks are magical. They do have innate spellcasting of Hunter's Mark. They do have Thorny Touch as opposed to Withering Touch, which does necrotic damage and poison damage. But most importantly, if it hits something that is undead and normally immune to poison and necrotic, it takes away that immunity until the end of next turn. And then has Baleful Briar, where it can explode in spectral briars that do a lot of piercing damage, but also have a very similar ability to rip away poison and necrotic immunities from not just the dead, but the living as well. So it is also a very useful ally for them to get if they need to deal with other fell spirits and terrible things, if they're able to do so. Or if they just want to straight up fight, that might just end in a TPK, which is a very important lesson to learn, that sometimes you have to solve the mystery first before throwing yourself at the big monster. As I mentioned, Greenbones won't be on their own. I'm sure that I will have some lower level specters or the like. Perhaps one that was one of the hunters that she got vengeance on, who no longer has the top of their head, but uses a crossbow that shoots, say, bolts of cold or the like. Perhaps another one that controls ghostly mastiffs, but looks like they've been all chewed up. So you have the one creature that's controlling them and the lesser mastiffs that the heroes can fight. And perhaps another one that is a trap master, but, you know, their ghostly form has obviously been killed by a massive bear trap that they fell into. His ability to slow players down and that sort of thing. There's going to be a lot of creeping vines, as that is a theme. There's going to be perhaps warnings or clues that green bones will leave that are spelled out in vines and bones that are arranged in effigies. And on the unnatural ambience front, these vines will grow and flourish no matter the season. I'll probably set this early winter. So it's really unusual that the greenery is still growing and fresh and alive, despite there perhaps being snow on the ground and that sort of stuff. And this is also where these strange blooms of ectoplasm are that the heroes need to initially gather for their patron. I'll probably have a plaque somewhere in the building that's very prominent that has like the motto or saying of the lodge itself when it was originally founded by actually go-to-line people before being taken over by jerks who have now doomed the place, where bits and pieces have been scratched away by time and the elements and ghosts to become maybe something that's a little bit more sinister and mocking. I need to work on the language there, but that'll take the place of like the typical nursery rhymes that you get in ghost stories, that sort of thing. Again, you can see Green Bones and hundreds of other monsters all perfectly for free for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition at boxofteeth.blogspot.com. If you're more interested in the horror fiction that I write or the other non-D&D role-playing projects that I have, you can always go to www.zacharyoshea.com. Thank you for your time and your attention, and have a great weekend.